Welcome to Exhibition. And hello, Tracey-Maree Smith.
Hello, Richard. Thank you for interviewing me.
A pleasure and great to see you. Your exhibition is Metamorphic at M Contemporary in Sydney.
Yeah.
And these works are very largely abstract in their appearance. But for you, what do they conjure?
They're actually developed from my own transformation, really, ever since my daughter, who's 16, was born. And it started with me really having postnatal depression, and a transformation from then of working on myself, going down a healing path that was natural, and just in order to really be a better mother, which then opens up a whole other world that I didn't really knew existed, or a whole other part of myself that I didn't really know existed. And not that I intentionally set out to paint that way, but that is what comes out throughout my art.
That word transformation sounds like a very significant part of the process, and as we'll talk about shortly, perhaps is reflected in the physical way in which you make the paintings. They are literally transformations as you work on them.
Yeah.
But they also seem to have perhaps elements of the natural world of transformation. You know, mineral deposits in rocks, crystalline structures, perhaps parts of cells seen under microscopes. Do those sort of things resonate for you as well when you look at the works?
Yes, absolutely. I feel really connected to the land, and I grew up in Moree, Narrabri, Collarenabri, Armidale. So I feel very connected to a landscape that's sparse and open and isolated, and I feel like that is where I am at home. And so internally, that is another form of transformation, renewal when I'm in the landscape. And I think I juxtapose the two, the abstract and what I call the landscape, which is quite often an abstract landscape, but it's my feeling when I am there within an isolated landscape. Yeah.
Let's go to the nitty-gritty of the creative process, because for you the process of making these works is a very physical one, involving some quite vigorous activities. Can you explain a little of how these pieces are produced?
There's an initial, I try not to be too cerebral about it, because I've come from an industry that was very conceptual, and I really want it to come from my intuition and my internal self. So initially it's throwing paint. It's throwing paint down in blobs and almost like a Jackson Pollock. And then from that point, there's lots of layering of different colors of paint. And finally, one of the final processes is to then sand it all back, get it all back. So that's kind of like a metaphor for taking back layers and layers of, I guess the word could be psyche, that we build up over our lifetime that is not really part of who we really are, the kind of the masks that we put on top of one another. So that comes back, and then I might add more masks. I might paint into it and take away more, paint into it more, until I'm actually feeling that it's right.
So as you begin that, that very physical sanding process, and you use things like an orbital sander, so quite a powerful piece of machinery. As you reveal things, when do you decide that what you've revealed is something that you then want to keep and stop at?
It's an intuitive, so it's a gut feel, and it's like, if it isn't right, it's sandpaper rubbing against me, and I know it's not right. And sometimes I try to talk myself into it. Oh no, that's working, it's working. But if I leave it for a couple of days and come back and I don't listen to my head and I take all thought out and listen to my gut, then I know whether it's right or wrong.
Are there particular challenges in the making process for these works for you?
I guess I can sand back too far and then it's ruined. So it flattens out too much. So that is a challenge sometimes. If I don't listen really to my gut feel and I make too many mistakes per se, then I've gone too far. So that is a challenge. Sometimes I stand too far and holes might come in the canvas, but I'm starting to think of that as part of my process because they don't grow and they're quite beautiful now. That's really part of the authenticity of my work, I think.
How did you develop the methodology of this work in the first place?
I initially started painting. I started painting abstract work. I used to be a graphic designer, and I wanted something to be free without restraint or rules. And I was painting, and then I made a mistake on one, and my husband came in and said, "You could just sand that back." And he brought me a block and a piece of sandpaper, and I really loved how that looked. I loved the end product of that, and but it was really time consuming. And then one day he came home with an orbital sander, and I said, "There's no way I can use that. That'll ruin my whole artwork." But that was it. It did change my work, but it's opened it up to so many beautiful results. And now I feel like I paint with the sander, so I can turn it with angles, and I can add bits in, and I really love that part of it. The initial sanding's quite laborious, but after that it's a beautiful carving. So it's almost like, it is almost like a carving as well. I feel like there's valleys and mountains, and when I add the paint back in, it sits within the valleys. And then if I sand that off, there's another beautiful process where you sometimes get an outline from previous colors that have been there. And sometimes if I'm not really planning, I forget what color might be on the base, and then it just pops out, and that's a really beautiful surprise as well.
You mentioned your training in graphic design, but are there other schools of art or particular artists who have influenced you?
Oh, definitely abstract expressionism, because I really love to throw the paint and be physical about it and have that feeling of freedom and taking away from thought. So that was definitely a huge influence initially. Australian landscape painters. I just feel like Fred Williams, John Olsen. I love it when someone produces something that is incredibly unique to our country, our culture, and I get that sense of the landscape when I look at it. And I felt like with their work, I did get that sense, and I used to go there as a child, go to the art galleries as a child, and just stare at their paintings and want to envelop that feeling around me. And if I can produce something that does that with somebody else at any time, that would be just a wonderful pinnacle of my career. Yeah.
Let's go to one or two particular works, because I'd love you, perhaps if you can, to introduce us to them, or talk through what you see in these particular works as their essential elements and feelings. Let's begin with "She spits storms and grows flowers on her tongue."
This one, again, a lot of times my artwork has a mind of its own, and this one, the whole concept sort of came about again organically and intuitively, and it has elements to me of almost a scorpion look, or there's that kind of feeling about it and a strength, and it's a little bit more masculine, I think, than my other works. And I was feeling like, as a woman growing older, that I'm starting to get a voice, and well, I always had a voice. I mean, use my voice more. Yeah, so I'm feeling that I'm caring less what people think, and I'm my strength is developing, and that's a surprise, and it's wonderful. And I wanted to kind of get, well, no, I didn't. I intuitively got that coming out in that painting.
Let's move to another one entitled "For All the Burdens We Need Not Carry."
Yes, so this is a piece that I did rework at some stage, because I felt like it had more in it, and it's more of a landscape, and I wanted to kind of get that feeling again, that once you're in a landscape, once you're part of nature, the burdens that we have just wash away. And this is water and land, and again there's the valleys and the hills and the layers of landscape, and that was my concept with the title for that one.
There is a great sense with this work of space. As you say, you mention landscape, and one can feel that sense of openness of space. But in the making of the works, how do you find that balance between, or creating that balance between, space and complexity?
I think that's, again, it's a real intuitive sense. It's a real intuitive feeling about what's working, what's not. How do I feel about it when I step back, when I'm in it, sometimes I could sit in front of a work and just stare at it for a long period of time. It could even be an hour or more, or hours or days, or it sits in my kitchen area and I walk past it every day and just take note of how I feel. And sometimes I will put a mark in one corner, and then that tells me, I need a mark up here now to balance that out, or I need to take something away. And that's how I work.
And now to a third work, "Everything I Ever Lost Came Back to Me."
Yes, so that's another landscape, and it is the landscape of my childhood, from memories of feelings of Tracy-Maree, Moree. That was when I was quite young. My mother was born in Tracy-Maree, my grandmother lived there, and I loathed going there as a child. But now I get these beautiful memories that bring back this feeling of this heat and this dry and this redness and pinkness of the dirt, and I'm an only child, so that aloneness, that's probably why that comes up a lot, and being alone. And now I wish that I had the foresight then to appreciate where I was, and to, like, it's a landscape I haven't seen. It's something you really have to trek out to see it, this different amazing landscape, and there's a history there, and a culture that is not anywhere else that I've lived or been to. Yeah, so I wanted to get that across.
Let's talk a little about the nature of the titles, because as I've just been mentioning them, you've been sharing that sense of the content of the work, but the titles themselves, things like "For All the Burdens We Need Not Carry," "Everything I Ever Lost Came Back to Me," and that quite dramatic one of "She spits storms and grows flowers on her tongue." There's quite a strong narrative element in the title, almost as though the title is introducing you to a story. How do you see them?
Yes, I think it is a transformative story, and I'm 52 this year, and I think, as I've spoken about, that I've just naturally grown stronger, naturally using my voice, and naturally caring less about what anybody else thinks. I'm not quite there yet, but that I feel like it's just all naturally dropped off, and I feel like I'm more empowered. And a lot of those titles have come from authors I've been reading. So I've kind of brought that into my work, and maybe because I have been reading these beautiful stories of empowerment, that's come out in my work as well. So part of it's me, part of it's others, and I'm on this kind of trajectory of continuing to find my authenticity and tearing away anything that isn't me or isn't authentic or isn't needed, that maybe I've built up over a lifetime.
The way in which you describe that reading that you've been doing perhaps explains some of the other titles as well that I was going to mention, because they do seem like very strong identity statements.
Yeah.
For example, do not perform for them, or hold on to all that you are, or she found herself within the depths of her own heart. Do you see these as identity statements that you're perhaps trying to share with the viewer?
Yes, I do. I think I always keep my daughter in mind as well. She's 16, and I would like, I guess I would like other women not to spend a lifetime trying to have power for themselves or empower themselves or be who they are, and so I am telling a story in a way. I want to express that now that I'm at this point, this is so much better. It's so much better to be who you are, and I can only imagine it's going to get better. Yes,
It will indeed, and it's been great that you have shared that story with us today. So, Tracey-Maree Smith, thanks also for sharing your exhibition with us.
Thanks, Richard. Thank you so much.